We finally have another death battle that I'm actually somewhat interested in. Thank goodness. Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is the Raptor, and welcome back to another one of my death battle prediction videos. This will likely be another quicker one, I'm assuming, just because university is really in like the mega crunch time of the semester, so I don't have a lot of time to make this video, and I didn't have as much time to research this fight, and frankly, I still don't have the grandest amount of knowledge on either of these characters. I'm still gonna predict this fight because I know a lot of you guys like seeing that, and I still have a considerable amount of knowledge, but just make sure to take everything that I say with a grain of salt. Just because I'm predicting this fight doesn't necessarily mean I will get it right. That's the whole point of a prediction. I could get it right, I could get it wrong, you know, both of those are possible. In terms of which character I want to see win, if you've seen this channel before, you already know the answer to that. I'm much more of a Naruto fan than I am a One Piece fan. I've heard that One Piece is really cool, I just didn't really get into it in the same way that I got into Naruto, or I didn't get as invested in it. So I'm definitely rooting for Rock Lee in this fight, and when it comes to the season overall, I gotta admit, it would suck to see both Kakashi and Lee lose in this season. So again, I'm definitely rooting for Lee. Lee is awesome. No offense to One Piece fans, by the way. I just, I'm not as emotionally invested in One Piece or Sanji. But yeah, I'm definitely rooting for Lee, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I think he's going to win. It doesn't necessarily mean that I think he's going to lose. I'm still going to try to analyze this fight as fair as possible. So yeah, let's get on with it. So like a lot of other fights that have been happening in Season 7, this one really feels like it could just depend on how Death Battle decides to scale these characters and what they decide to give them, etc, etc. Like for example, if they just decide to scale Lee all the way up to 8th gate Guy, then I do not see Sanji winning this fight at all. Like for example, I don't think they're gonna do that. I don't think they should do that, but that was just an example. It could really just depend on how they scale these characters, what feats, for scaling they could allow for these characters, etc, etc. And the gates, honestly, by themselves are a bit tough to analyze. Like gates 1 through 6, they're absolutely going to include for Lee. There's no reason why they wouldn't. When it comes to the 7th gate though, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was only shown in the anime, but at the same time, I'm not sure if they would consider that non-contradictory to the original source. So I want to say they could potentially use the 7th gate, and when it comes to the 8th gate, that one is really high up in the air. Like, if they're really trying to analyze these characters to the maximum potential, I could see them using the 8th gate. I'm not sure whether or not they should, but I've seen some people say that they shouldn't use it. I've seen some people say that they should, etc, etc, so I'm not really sure what's going on with the 8th gate there. It's a bit ambiguous. And when it comes to Sanji, there's a bit of that too, where it's tough to say, what they're going to include, if they're going to include it, if they're not going to include it, but we'll get into that a bit later. When it comes to what these characters really have in common, they're both great fighters taught by great teachers. I don't really see there being a huge difference in terms of fighting skill between the two. I could see the argument being made for Rock Lee having the better training, but again, I don't think it's by a huge margin. I would want to say that Sanji is probably more versatile just from like a numbers perspective. I think he just has a broader arsenal, but even then, again, I don't think it's by too huge of a margin. I could go more in depth into their versatility, like the exact abilities that they have, but I want to try to keep this video relatively short for, as I mentioned before. But yeah, I think really what this fight comes down to is just, the general stats, like strength, speed, durability. I think that's what's more important in this fight, and unfortunately that sucks because again, it's kind of hard to pin down where these characters exactly lie when it comes to those kinds of things. Obviously, we all know about Rock Lee's Meteor Feed. When he was in, I believe it was the 6th gate, he was aided by a bunch of other Taijutsu masters and he was able to break apart a meteor. Of course, he wouldn't be able to do this on his own while in the 6th gate because he did have assistance, but naturally his contribution to this feat is still not the upper limit of his power if we are including stuff like the 7th gate and the 8th gate. He would naturally be more powerful than what he did in the 6th gate, and the same would likely apply to his durability as well. When it comes to Sanji though, he actually has a very similar feat in the manga where he just takes out a meteor. The difference though is that he did this all by himself. And if I recall correctly, he wasn't aided by any sort of outside source or any sort of power boost or, special ability or anything like that. It's just something he casually did. So when looking at it like that at face value, it definitely sounds like Sanji is much more powerful than Rock Lee in base form and is likely even more powerful than Rock Lee in terms of his 6th gate power. Now, I don't want to say that these feats are exactly the same. Like, if Lee was able to pull off the Meteor Feat on his own, I don't want to say that that would exactly be the same as Sanji doing the Meteor Feed on his own, but still, it still seems to paint a pretty clear picture, at least in my opinion. But even then, we can't just stop here because these characters at their maximum potential, they still go beyond this. This is where the more ambiguous stuff comes in. Again, if we are using 7th gate and 8th gate for Lee, then he's definitely more powerful than just breaking off part of a meteor. But if we're using the raid suit for Sanji, and I don't know whether or not we are, and that's the thing. I think Death Battle's probably going to announce this, later, like soon after I make this video, and then I'm gonna look like an idiot if they aren't including it. But if they are including the raid suit, then yeah, Sanji is definitely a lot more physically capable than his other feats without it. And it even gives him some other abilities or some other traits like invisibility and fire resistance, which could definitely be useful against someone like Lee and his own techniques. And in general, it just seems like Sanji has a number of techniques that would be very useful against a hand-to-hand fighter, like Lee. Like, for example, he has his armaments Haki, which could definitely, defend against a lot of Lee's attacks. And he also has, I believe it's Diable Jambe. Am I pronouncing that correctly? I'm not really sure. But that's something that can literally just negate an opponent's durability and burn you from the inside. Now, we know that Lee has a lot of high stamina to be able to use the gates to the effectiveness that he's able to use them, but we already know, again, that it puts a huge strain on your body. And if the strain is already there, plus Diable Jambe, if Sanji's able to land that attack, then I could definitely see Death Battle making the argument that those two combined would just allow Sanji to outlast Lee. Again, with that much strain, I think that something like that could definitely be detrimental overall. It could definitely wear him out very quickly and wear him down over time. And to my knowledge, I don't think Lee has anything that could severely affect Sanji in that way. I don't think he has something that could deteriorate his stamina even more than it's already deteriorating, you know what I mean? So I definitely think that could be useful against someone who uses the gates and which puts a huge strain on your body. I really do. I definitely want to say that it's fair to scale Lee to characters like Guy and Kakashi when it comes to speed, especially considering that Kakashi needed to use the Sharingan in order to be able to keep track of Lee, and they've both gotten significantly faster since then. So I want to say that Lee is definitely past the Mach 2000 mark when it comes to speed in his base form, and when it comes to the gate multipliers, that's been estimated to be around tens of thousands of times faster than sound, if not even faster than that. When it comes to Sanji, though, that's a bit ambiguous when it comes to his speed. I've heard some people say that he's slower than Lee. I've heard some people say that he's faster than Lee. And, there are some feats that if he could scale to certain feats, then that would definitely put him faster than Lee. But if he doesn't scale to those, then, it wouldn't. Although I have heard some people say that he, along with Zoro and Luffy, have dodged light speed attacks, even pre-time skip. But even if Sanji was slower than Lee, Sanji does have ways to make up for it. Again, he does have his invisibility, which adds to his own stealth. Again, if we are including the raid suit, again, really not sure if we are, but I'm going on the assumption that we are for right now. And then he also has his observation Haki, which allows him to keep up with very fast characters, and it essentially negates any sort of stealthy techniques that Lee has. Honestly, the observation Haki is really overpowered. It's allowed him to keep up with ridiculously fast characters in the past, even characters that, have a very potent form of precognition. I know that Lee is extremely fast, his speed, that's something he's very much known for. And I'm not, assuming Sanji is slower than Lee for a second, I'm not saying that this observation Haki would be a quick fix, it would absolutely put him on the same level in terms of speed, but I feel like Sanji's own combat speed combined with something like observation Haki and the invisibility, if we are including that with, the raid suit, I definitely think that could allow him to keep up with Lee in terms of combat. That sounds like something Lee would have a hard time working around. Just again, all those things happening at once with Sanji's own speed and the observation Haki. I feel like based on the characters that Sanji has kept up with before using the observation Haki, that, Lee might not be easy per se, but I want to say that Sanji could definitely at least keep up with Lee in terms of speed. Ultimately, Death Battle could say something very differently from what I'm saying, and you guys might feel differently from what I'm saying, and that's perfectly fine. Like I said at the beginning of this video, this is just my own personal thoughts based on my limited knowledge of these characters. Take everything that I say with a grain of salt. Although I know literally no matter what I say, people are going to be pissed off. This is just one of those kinds of fights. So just try to be respectful in the comments, even though I know that's not going to happen. But yeah, no, in terms of this fight, the way I personally see this fight, because this is my prediction, the way I personally see this fight, there are a lot of different things that you may or may not attribute to these characters. There's a lot of feats that they may or may not scale to, so there's a lot of different ways you can interpret it. But based on the most reliable interpretations that I've seen, I think that it's more likely that Sanji is going to win. The way that I see these characters, I think that Sanji has a number of good advantages over Lee, especially when you look at stuff like versatility, like his own special abilities. I think are very effective against someone like Lee, like a hand-to-hand fighter like Lee. And I think in the ways that Sanji may fall short, he does have ways to make up for it. The biggest way that I could see them going for Lee over Sanji is just them saying, oh yeah, you know, 8th Gate Lee is more powerful than Sanji, even at his most powerful. And I'm not saying that that's not likely. I definitely think that that could happen. And I'm still rooting for Lee. 100% I'm rooting for Lee. But if they don't go that route, then I think it's more likely that they're going to go for Sanji. I don't really see this fight being a stomp either way, and I just want this fight to end up being good. If any of you are rooting for Lee or think that Lee is going to win, I feel you. I really want Lee to win this fight. I'm 100% rooting for Lee all the way to the end, and I know that Lee can win. I know that he definitely can. But based on everything that I know right now, and based on my initial thoughts and everything like that, as of right now, I just personally think that Sanji's going to win. I could be wrong, and I want to be wrong. I'm personally just going with Sanji. But if you disagree, that's 100% okay. And believe me, I know there are a lot of people backing Rock Lee on this one, so I'm probably going to get eaten alive. But regardless, if you disagree or agree for whatever reason, let me know why down in the comments below. I really want to hear what you guys have to say. If you like this video, please give this video a like. Subscribe if you could too, that would be amazing. But yeah, that's it for this prediction. Rock Lee, I'm rooting for you. Prove me wrong. See you guys later.